Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on a Monday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. 2 hours to play with. We will take you up to 6 o'clock straight up on this 13th of October, 2025. Just reminders, always get social with me. Very easy to do. Add Rich Q on X and TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. We are proudly presented by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. And of course, Jersey Shore Breaks getting set for season number 2 in March of 2026. So as we typically say on a Monday, it is a Man Up Monday, but we had a little caveat to that with the show. It's a Lunes Manolo Mendioso Man Up Monday. We got to call some of the BS takes by yours truly, as well as you guys from our Friday show, our Friday football show. Lloyd Vance at 5:20. You guys out there get in on the conversation early and often. And the NFL, it's a funny little bird, the NFL, right? You can't figure out this league. And those that claim they have it figured out, or they have an idea of how the league or these teams, everything, how it unfolds, if you will, we don't have a clue. We do not have a clue. If the NFL has proven or shown us anything from the time we were just, playing a little Pop Warner, playing out in the yard before kickoff on Sunday, and then watching the games with our dad and our family and friends, we know squat, we know diddly. Every single solitary season, there's parity, there's parity, there's parity. There's parity with the NFL. And that's what we're finding out. And I would hate to, as I properly have to do the show on a Monday, yes, we have to include the Loco Radio de Lunatic. We have to get that out there as well. So let me just say, here's what's going on right now in the NFL. The Titans fire their head coach after a very poor start. And we talk about Black Monday in the NFL, how stuff comes down already, boom. I mean, they make a decision, Brian Callahan fired after that 1-5 start. It probably didn't help that he's calling out the franchise quarterback after another poor offensive performance and showing. Then you got issues with the Philadelphia Eagles and their defense. Darius Smith abruptly retires. And now you guys can sit there and say, not a big deal. Yeah, it is. It is a very big deal. You got Tua down in Miami saying what after a game, which we will get into. You have the situation with the Jets that is becoming, it's abundantly clear right now that Aaron Glenn is beyond. He is beyond in over his head as head coach of the New York Football Jets. And he might be one and done as well. I mean, what I saw yesterday from the Jets, or what you guys, I mean, you almost feel bad for those in London. If you didn't know what the hell the sport of football was, you're watching that debacle against Denver that has some issues as well. And the Jets were just putrid offensively, historically bad, and they lose 13-11, and Aaron Glenn not pushing all the right buttons. Justin Fields playing just absolutely poor football from the quarterbacking position. We will get into that. There were teams that had a win over the weekend that needed to show up. The Chargers showed up. The Patriots showed up. The Steelers thumped the Browns. And then there were teams that, if you wanted to actually take them serious, if you wanted to call these teams legit, they had to turn around and come up big, and they came up small. And I give you Jacksonville and the Dallas Cowboys. What the hell is going on with the Dallas Cowboys? I mean, what is going on right now with the Dallas Cowboys? We're talking about Callahan getting fired in the Tennessee and the Titans. We're talking about Aaron Glenn maybe one and done. Who the hell knows what's going to go on in Dallas with their head coach and their defensive coordinator? They are ruining a historically brilliant season by one Dak Prescott offensively, and they're giving up points every single week. And oh, by the way, we will also get into the big news over the college football weekend, which it seems to a lot of people, including myself, was long overdue. James Franklin out. And oh, by the way, you get $49 million for your troubles. But the NFL is absolutely wild. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. The Smith news coming down, because we predominantly, obviously in our backyard, talk Eagles, Jets, and Giants. The Smith news coming down is bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre that you have a player that, oh, by the way, just comes out of nowhere, 11 years in the NFL, 5 games in, little cup of coffee with the Eagles, who has played really well, mind you, with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he abruptly retires? There is a disconnect going on right now within that Eagles locker room and that Eagles organization. You cannot tell me otherwise. You cannot, again, you cannot tell me otherwise. There is a divide going on. There is a divide. There's something just it's not right. It's just goofy. There's just, whether it's a disconnect, whether it's a fracture in the locker room. We already know that the offensive players, everyone's getting frustrated because they're not getting theirs. Saquon's off to a slow start. A.J. Brown, pretty much every other game, is bitching, whining, and complaining. Patullo's on the hot seat as an offensive coordinator. That was Nick Sirianni's hiring. But then to turn around and to have arguably one of your best defensive players abruptly just say, that's it, I'm done. I mean, we're not going to look at that a little more? I mean, listen, this right now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you after 6 games and knowing what this team brings to the table, knowing that this is a championship. Obviously, we know the defending Super Bowl champs, but when you have a player, when you have Darius Smith, who abruptly retires, and we're talking about the Eagles and their depth and the issues with the secondary and not getting the production that they got last year defensively and the issues with the offense, he turns around out of nowhere and goes on social media, mind you, to announce his retirement. Makes you think a couple things. Makes you potentially think, maybe this guy wasn't all in the first place. But if you talk about production, he's been pretty productive for the Philadelphia Eagles. But you go on social media and you make that announcement, and you got the A.J. Brown stuff. You got the Patullo on the hot seat. You got Saquon frustrated. You got, Jalen Hurts not reading defenses, not looking through his progressions. Secondary getting cooked. Adoree Jackson. People are calling for Adoree Jackson to get cut because of his lack of effort against Scattaboo. Beep bop bidoo, the scat man the other night when the Giants actually clipped them 34-17. Doesn't even want to make a tackle. We're talking October, early October, and guys are making business decisions. There's stuff going on with this Philadelphia Eagles team right now. And you can be the biggest Eagle fan in the world. And if you can't admit right now that the bloom is off the rose at this point, then something's amiss, man. Something's amiss. I mean, Nolan Smith Jr., right? So you lose that defensive prowess, placed on injured reserve late September, triceps injury, right? You also had the other player that was placed on injured reserve. You got the Brand retirement. You got Josh Sweat, the free agency. You're losing players. Now you have this. This is a hit. This is a hit. They signed him to a 1-year deal, right, after the Week 1 win against the Cowboys, and he made an instant impact. Couple sacks, couple quarterback hits, couple pressures, tackles for loss. Now here we go. I mean, there's an issue going on with this team right now. Period. There's an issue going on with the Philadelphia Eagles. And by the way, it's just not the Eagles that we're seeing it in. The Eagles are a defending Super Bowl champ. You would think they were going to right the ship. And sometimes you're trending the wrong way. It was a bad loss to the Giants. It was a bad loss. They didn't show up. The Giants absolutely dominated them. Now, can you imagine for a moment if the Philadelphia Eagles have to go on the road in Minnesota and Carson Wentz lights them up? This is a team right now in Philly that has scored 17 points the last 2 weeks. And oh, by the way, they were up 17-3 against Denver in the fourth quarter at home and spit the bit and choked away that lead. There's issues going on. There's issues, obviously, going on with Tennessee. There's issues in Miami. There's a boatload of issues in Cleveland. There's just a debacle, Titanic proportions, right? The ship be a sinking in New York with the Jets, which I'm going to get to in a moment. The Titans turn around and they fire Callahan after a 1-5 start. Now, it probably didn't help that he turned around and ripped Cam Ward I mean, that probably didn't help. I mean, hey, more power to you. You're dying with your boots on. You're going out there and you're talking a little garbage and a little trash as your fanny's making the way out of the building. But that's a mess. We talk about lack of patience. It shows you just how bad that organization is run. They fired their GM, John Robinson, in 2023. They fired Carthon. I'm sorry, they hired him in 2024, right? They fired Mike Rabel in 2024. They hired Callahan in 2025. They fired Carthon in 2025. They hired Borgazzi in 2025. And then they just fired Callahan. I mean, what the hell's going on with the tight? And you draft who you believe is a franchise quarterback that has yet to play like a franchise quarterback. So we always talk about Black Monday. We always talk about these coaches on the hot seat. After 17 weeks, you never want to see anyone lose their job. But the Titans have basically said, that's it. I mean, we can't do this anymore. They're a bad football team. And the only reason they get the win is because of Arizona's ineptness with their blunders in that game. Otherwise, they're not winning that game 22-21, and they'd be 0-6. They're headed. They're staring down the barrel again, a potentially overall draft pick. They got the Pats, the Colts, the Chargers, the Texans, the Seahawks, Jacksonville, Cleveland, the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Saints, and the Jags are closing out. I mean, what do you see? A win? 2? 3? I mean, how do you fire this guy? If you fire this guy after 6 games, then guess what? The Jets can easily turn around and fire Aaron Glenn tomorrow. They can easily turn around and fire Aaron Glenn tomorrow. What I saw yesterday was an abomination. I mean, it was embarrassing. If you're a Jet fan, why are you even getting up on Sundays? Aaron Glenn looks lost as a head coach. He looks absolutely lost. Their offense stinks. Justin Fields is not the answer. He's not. We talk about these quarterbacks in the NFL that have to get rid of the ball 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Aaron Glenn's got a quarterback that's sitting in the pocket for 4 seconds, and you can't see the field. I mean, don't even talk to me about burning the timeout. Don't even, at the end of the half. And listen, I'm not going to sit here. It's unbearable to listen to Eisen call the games. Just stop already, please. I mean, he's great at what he does as a talking head with his show. You know, that's a great. He's just horrible when it comes to play by play. And Warner here and there. I mean, some of the stuff they were saying, I was like, what game are you watching? It's embarrassing. And again, the NFL is not going to stop these overseas games because they know it's another way, it's another avenue for revenue. The quality of play stinks. The quality of play is horrible. The players do not want to travel. They don't want to go overseas. It takes them several days for their bodies to even get acclimated. Then you want to expect them to go out and play a game at a high level for 60 minutes? It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. But the quality of play, offensively, the Jets are just a bad football team. I told you this going into the season. I told you this. You have to structure the roster appropriately. You have to. You have to. And they haven't done that. And the coaching staff. I mean, you're looking at their coaching staff. Inglestrong, this offense coordinator was a quality control, I think. A quarterback quality control, whatever the hell the title is. Passing game coordinator. And now you make him an offensive coordinator with a journeyman quarterback in Justin Fields. The end of the half was typical Jets. You call a fake punt. You run a fake punt. You can't use that play again for the rest of the season. It's not like you were going to, but you got, if Denver was smart, I don't hear anyone talking about this. They didn't even bring it up during the broadcast. If you're the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton, you're looking around, you should have known exactly. It was so predictable. You have Brees Hall out there who's never played a snap in special teams. The Jets are basically saying it's a fake punt. You have all your offensive linemen out on the field. You make it so obvious, and they still picked up the yard. But then what are you doing after that? At the end of the half, I mean, you're not even attempting to run the ball. Try to get out of there with some semblance of an offense, get some points, do something, 10 plays, and just like a run here, a little run here, and then a sack here. And then it was the clock management was atrocious. You're just letting the clock go down, go down, go down, go down. I pulled it up right now. You run the fake punt, 4th and 1 from the 37 with a $1.04 left. You have plenty of time. Plenty of time to get maybe a shot down the field, maybe a screen pass, which is a dying art in the NFL, by the way. And then maybe an opportunity for a long field goal, because in today's NFL, every kicker is kicking at 55-60. The same nonsense could be said at the end of the game where you're turning the ball over. If that's the case, you might as well give the ball to Brees Hall for a couple of plays, have him run it 2 or 3 straight times. And then you know what? Instead of having Justin Fields drop back to pass from Denver's 44, I mean, even if you picked up 6 yards, go for a long field goal to try to win it. I'm taking the ball out of his hands. And then to make matters worse, Aaron Glenn sits there, post-game press conference. And at first he sits there and says, yeah, Justin Fields got to play better. But then when he's pressed by the media and several reporters asking him, or even saying, did you give any thought to benching Justin Fields? And I think it was Connor Hughes, right? And I know some of these guys can be a pain in the ass, but they're trying to do their job when they go after some of these athletes and some of these coaches and players. But it was a valid question. It was a valid question. And Aaron Glenn sits there and says, come on. Like, I'm not going to bench a guy after one bad showing, but my man, it's been horrible. Like, you needed a spark, something in a game that you could have won. And I don't want to hear this nonsense about losing the locker room. I mean, you had Garrett Wilson, who's a great wide receiver. You can tell he's getting frustrated. I'm not going to suggest you got to bench Justin Fields, right? That's fine. You don't have to, right? Because you're committed to him financially. It's low risk, high reward. Okay, fine. But that's a bad loss. And you're taking on an even worse team. Well, I'll say Panthers actually play hard, and the Panthers, give them credit, because they beat the Cowboys, who I'm going to get into in a moment, because the Cowboys fans, I don't want to hear jack squat from you today on a Monday. You had no business losing that game. But why not go to a veteran quarterback like Taylor, that's at least going to throw the football down the field? This whole idea, you risk losing the locker room if you bench a quarterback. Says who? Says who? Nowhere is it written in the bylaws of the NFL when you're a struggling team you can bench a quarterback. Or because a quarterback's making a lot of money, he can't get benched, And again, we've gone back and forth with the Mac Jones and playing well. Kid threw for 350, made too many mistakes yesterday. I still think he's played well. Point is, obviously when Purdy comes back, most likely going to be the starter. You're seeing it around the NFL. Geno Smith, they get the win, but there was talk about benching Geno Smith. Anthony Richardson has the most freakish, bizarre eye injury in the history of sports, warming up. That kid's going to be out. Daniel Jones, this is his team right now in the Colts. But point is, where does it say you can't bench a player, especially a player like Justin Fields that can't even get the ball down the field? I don't want to hear this nonsense. You risk losing the locker room. When you risk losing the locker room? When you have no idea how to coach these guys up. You have no idea, no semblance, no rhyme or reason. That's coaching. That is coaching. Period. It's coaching. And yesterday, Denver, again, a team, and you guys can get on me, that's fine. A team that I turned around and said, listen, I got them for the Super Bowl. And maybe I wrote some teams off. Maybe I gave too much juice and too much love and too many flowers to some of these teams early. I don't know. We'll see. Because I know for a fact, I haven't even mentioned Sunday Night Football. I know you guys are waiting for me to man up on that. I got like a laundry list of things I have to man up on. Funny how the host always has to man up and you guys never do. And yeah, Kansas City kind of looks like a juggernaut right now, but still, that's later on in the show. The point is, nowhere does it say you cannot bench the quarterback. The NFL, 6 weeks in, I can't tell you who's good, who's bad, who's indifferent, who stinks, who's great. I can't. I can't. Who's to say Buffalo doesn't go out tonight on the road and lose to Atlanta? You know, the Broncos are 4-2. The Colts are 5-1. The Chargers stopped that slide. They're 4-2. The Patriots are 4-2. Do we believe these teams are world beaters? Aside from my opinion on my Super Bowl prediction, right? You got the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, somebody explain to me what the hell's going on in Dallas. I told you they were going to be a bad team, but you have no business losing to the Carolina Panthers. This team is averaging 30-something points on the offensive side of the ball, but yet they can't stop a nosebleed. They're historically bad on defense, as you know, worse than Baltimore. Worse. You got no business. If you're the Dallas Cowboys or you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, I don't want to hear from you today. I don't want to hear from you. Again, I do not want to hear from you. You sat there on Friday, you patted out your chest because the Eagles lost to the Giants, right? Chirping, chirping, chirping. You know, living off my team's win, living vicariously as you wanted to be a Giant fan for a Friday. And then you turn around and you spit the bit against Carolina. I don't want to hear from Cowboys fans. Dak Prescott has played well. I mean, I'm looking around the NFL. Am I going to suggest right now that Tampa Bay is the best team coming out of the NFC because of what transpired last night? Detroit. I mean, I gave Kansas City the freaking kiss of death. Kansas City's probably going to go on a run and win the Super Bowl. It's a 2-2 team, and then boom, bad loss to Jacksonville, and they come back and they look very impressive against Detroit. What do I know? Oh, man up right there. I can't figure out the league. I can't. And if you guys have figured it out, let me know. Please let me know. 23 past 4 o'clock hour, cranking up on a man up, or as we like to say, a lunes Manolo Mentioso, aha, madman, locutor de radio, lunatic, Monday edition of On You, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Don't forget 20% off BYP20. Also, Three Brooks Bourbon and Get Ready with Tea. Loyal listener Locke, I am spite picking the Bears to defeat your Commanders. A, because I am petty and don't want your Super Bowl predictions to come true. B, the Eagles need to keep the NFC East lead. Oh my God. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? We're 5-6 weeks in the NFL season and the Eagles fan is panicking right now. Wait. Please tell me, please, because this made my day right now. Please tell me the Eagles fan isn't going to the mothership online. You know, they're typing in ESPN, they're looking at the standings, and you're already pulling out conference standings. You're pulling out playoff possibilities. Is that what you're doing right now? Oh my goodness. You know, it's bad enough the bunker slithered away on Friday's show. It is. The Giants wax. And no, it was a clipping. I don't want to hear this gentleman's clip. I don't even know what the hell a gentleman's clip is. They dog walked them, period. But the bunker boys, de facto over there, slithering away, made a comment or two on Friday. Didn't hear from him for the rest of the show. Now he's concerned. Your scoreboard watching 6 games into the NFL season. Is that what you're doing? Are you waiting for them when they sit there and say who's in, who's out, who's in the hunt? The guy with the khaki pants breaking it down, the guy that does the weather report, gives you the predictions, the probabilities. Oh my God. This is an all-time high, yet an all-time low by de facto leader of the Bunker Boys. I mean, who the hell comes out and you start the scoreboard watch 6 weeks into this season? Man says, for the love of God, can the NFL scrap this overseas nonsense? It's killing the players. It's brutal. It's absolutely the quality. It's horrible, man. It's so bad. It really is. But they're not going to do that. Can you imagine if an offensive star in the Eagles got hurt? I mean, listen, uh, players get hurt. It wasn't a clip, gentlemen's clip. 34-17 is a clipping. Sorry. It's a clipping. They could have put up 40 friggin' 5. You're lucky you scored friggin' 17 against the Giants. 34-17. When you got the guys on post game basically saying it's a clipping, when you got former players coming out saying that was a domination, yeah, I don't want to hear from you de facto. Go away. And just for that, we might turn around and spite pick Washington tonight. How's that? To lose the game, which ultimately means they're going to win the game because about the reverse. We do the reverse mush. Go watch scoreboard. Go watch the scoreboard after 5 or 6 weeks. Don't tell me that's not a clipping. You got absolutely manhandled or dog walked, as I like to say, on Thursday Night Football against a team that hasn't beaten you in primetime since 2008. Okay? Slither, get out of here. Heisman chimes in. Got to man up and say Jags can't lose at home to the Hawks. Oh, hold on a second, Vince. Hold on a second. Hold on. I'm going to read it off. If we want to be a playoff team, however, the pressure is on you, Q. You said the Eagles broke the Chiefs. That is looking like a horrible take. Hold on a second. Hold on. You know what else is looking like a horrible take? Oh, wait. Let me check that. That's looking like a friggin' brilliant take. Me telling you that slinging Sammy Darnold will be in the MVP conversation. I notice that your comment left out slinging Sammy Darnold. I noticed that. I noticed how you just basically, you just slide past Sam Darnold and what he's been able to do this season for Seattle. If it's not for Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold is right there for comeback player of the year. Oh, let's win it again, or maybe in the MVP conversation, because you don't want to give credit where credit is due. That was a clean game by slinging Sammy Darnold. Oh, by the way, he went 16-27, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, the long flowing locks of Trevor Lawrence, 27-42. You guys couldn't run the football. And Seattle's pass rush disrupted Lawrence. It's amazing. You get on me saying that the Chiefs were cooked and the Eagles broke them. Pump the brakes on the Chiefs. Okay? Pump the brakes. They had a nice win last night. I'm still not entirely sold on Kansas City. And I got Monday Marcus already saying I'm being defiant on this. That's fine. If you believe I'm being defiant, so be it. I'm going to be defiant. That's a nice win last night by Kansas City, especially bouncing back after that debacle against Jacksonville. Now, if they turn around and lose to the Raiders, it's all for naught. They got Washington coming up. They got the Bills coming up, the Broncos, the Colts, the Cowboys. They're going to win their 10-11 games. But all I said is I don't believe they're getting back to the Super Bowl. That's what I said. I think that dynasty, that run is over, and I'm going to stand by it. And if you guys want me to shout it on the mountaintop, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to 180 flip-flop. I'm not going to do it. Man, I'll tell you what, you guys are pieces of work. You come at me because you know it's a Monday. And I was already in a good mood because I didn't even have to worry about the Giants playing on a Sunday because they already got the win on Thursday. Did a little overseas, had the broadcast, tried to get a couple hours sleep, got my fresh roasted coffee, had a little good quality time with Kiki, right? Going out, playing around in the rain, running around, chasing rabbits and groundhogs and cars and whatever, cats and dogs and strays. Fine. So you knew today, because it was a Monday, you decide, oh, we can't wait. We are going to pinpoint every single solitary thing that Q said wrong on Friday. And that's what we do. It's a man up Monday. That's fine. But it's appalling to me. It is absolutely appalling to me how some of you don't man up. And it's a half-ass man up. And that's the problem I have. It's a half-mass. That's all. Do they ever? Callahan wasn't wrong about his criticism of Ward, though was he? He's not okay to hold guys accountable in the media anymore. I thought it showed some backbone. So I got an interesting text regarding Callahan. Okay. Uh, this is from someone that's well respected in the know. Quote, I told them for months he needed good assistant coaches and no one would listen. Brian was hired because of his father. So we talk about the Nepo hiring, right? How it doesn't pan out. I think to Vince's point, I have no problem with a head coach holding a player accountable, right? I mean, look at some of the nonsense. Dan Campbell, the Bush League crap we saw last night several times. Hutchinson, the cheap shot on Mahomes, right? McDaniel's going to have to hold Tua accountable, which we'll get into the 5 o'clock hour, for his nonsense. Callahan, I think Callahan knew he was on borrowed time. He was a dead man walking. There's got to be a disconnect. There's got to be something going on within that locker room that you fire the head coach after 6 games. Really. There really has to be something going on where it's the message is not even being heard. It's not even being conveyed, or it's being conveyed and everyone's basically pissing on it, or you have just a fractured locker room, right? You have issues. Now, am I going to sit here and say, this is kind of what we saw in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer? Everyone knew from the start it was a horrible hire. Everyone knew that. It was a horrible, horrible hire by Jacksonville to hire Urban Meyer. And you knew from the start the red flag when he got pinched with that $100,000 violating practice rules fine, right? It was bad. 2-11, that's it. Get out. 13 games he got. 13 games. And this guy gets 6. And I told you, I broke it down for you. This is how bad this franchise is. If you go back, John Robinson, 2023, fired. Carthon hired. Mike Grable fired. Callahan hired. Carthon fired. Right? Callahan fired. I mean, they don't know what they're doing. There's no rhyme or reason. None whatsoever. What up, Vinny? Tough game for Jacksonville. Everyone's beating everyone. Kansas City lost to Jax, who lost to Seattle, who lost to San Fran, who lost to Tampa Bay, who lost to Philly, who lost to New York and Denver. Who lost to the Chargers. Oh, man, that's a good one. We don't have a Death Star mic to man up with. It doesn't matter. It does not matter, right? Speaking of Denver, Wolf Q, Bo Nix is a bum. He's not a bum, but I'm starting to see some things I don't like from Bo Nix. I'm starting to see some things I don't like from Bo Nix. Sean Payne's a horrible play call. Sean Payne doesn't know what the hell he's doing sometimes. We start to talk about that a little bit. Their play calling is, I mean, it's bad. But, again, they're winning. They're 4-2. It makes things interesting in the AFC West, does it not? Look, Buffalo and New England is arriving a little early, kind of like Washington did. They got a hell of a quarterback, franchise quarterback. The Bills are the class of that division. The AFC North is so bad, it's just absolutely crazy to watch. Pittsburgh, they're 4-1. I mean, Cincinnati's, they're done. Baltimore is beyond cooked. They're beyond done. We know that. I mean, they're bad. They got too many injuries, no Lamar, and their defense is horrible. We love the Rams in that spot. Cleveland's got the issues with their quarterbacking. Now there's some talk that Stefanski might not make it to Thanksgiving. And everyone's starting to question, well, what was the point of trading Flacco? And now if you got Dylan Gabriel there and, the completion percentage, great. When are we going to see Sanders? Nobody knows. Indianapolis trying to run away with the South. Jacksonville stubs their toe. Texans, I'm not a fan of Stroud. I just think he's regressed. Tennessee's bad. And then you got the AFC West. And the last thing the Chargers and the Broncos want to do, to your point, guys, is give Kansas City life. And look, I just don't believe Kansas City's built to get back to the Super Bowl. It's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. They can't run the football. I think Mahomes is doing too much. Now you're starting to see the offense come alive a little bit. Okay, fine. Maybe I rush a judgment in that regard. And I don't trust their defense. I can see Buffalo beating Kansas City. I can't see Kansas City going into Buffalo and beating them. Forget about the Ravens. They're done. Who's really the other threat coming out of the AFC? Denver, the Chargers, the Colts, Pittsburgh, Aaron Rodgers, you get a home playoff game. Who knows how it's going to unfold, right? Who knows? Tampa Bay looks good. Tampa Bay looks good in the NFC. Lions took a little bit of a step back, but tough spot to play in on the road against Kansas City. Prime time. Mahomes always wins on prime time. Nick's is a weird impatience thing in the pocket. If he figures out, he'll be great. Listen, I think Bo Nix is a good quarterback, but I also think some of these young quarterbacks, that clock has to go on, right? That internal clock. They got to know when to pull the ball down, when to throw it away, and the progressions are not always there. And also, too, against the Jets, why not take more shots like down the field, right? And they really, I think you have to show a little more patience running the football to open some things off. Bo Nix was only averaging 5.8 yards per pass attempt. You want to talk about conditions? Fine. The Jets defense is not very good. But this season, he's averaging overall 6.2. I need you to be right around 8. Throw the ball down the field. You have the arm strength. He hasn't yet put together a really complete game. The Cincinnati game, that was a good win, complete game, but that was against a banged-up Cincinnati team, and he still had the bad pick in that one. I think to man's point, I think he's going to be okay. I do. I think Bo Nix is going to be okay. Joey B. Giants have Denver this coming week. I got to give them a great chance. Broncos been on the road for 2 weeks straight. Philly, then London game, jet lag and tired. Giants may steal one. Yeah, I actually think the Giants, this is a good spot for the Giants. Their defense is starting to come on. I mean, Burns is playing like an all-pro. Haven't gotten anything yet out of Sexy Dexy. Corners are starting to come alive a little bit. The youth, the linebackers. Carter's making some plays. Thibodeau is showing up. Could be a good spot for the Giants. I haven't even looked at I'll pull it up right now. Just a future line. Wow. Giants are 6.5-point dogs on the road. That is very enticing. Panthers are 1.5 favorite over the Jets. That's 6.5, 7. Man, I might want to grab the Giants on that one. Did you just seriously just call Steve Kornacki a weatherman? Pop culture now? No, I'm just saying because he wore the khakis, like he's breaking it down like the weather. I like Steve Kornacki when he does the March Madness and who's in and who's out, and that guy came out of nowhere, right? Late bloomer, huh? Gentleman's clip is being close to the end zone for the clip, but taking a knee. Well, hold on a second. I mean, they could have easily done that, right? Sammy the Slinger was on yesterday. I will man up for hating on his success last year. You should. Thank you. That shows growth by you. It does. Same thing he did last season, Q. He looks good until the game matters. That's always been my criticism of Sling and Sandy. You're going back to the Tampa Bay game, and that's not fair because he had like 6 incompletions in that one, and one basically ricocheted off the friggin' helmet, hit the scoreboard, and it was picked. That's not fair. He's played really, really well. Let me ask you, do you think Minnesota is probably sitting there saying, we would love to have Sam Darnold back? Seattle doesn't miss Geno Smith. I get it. These quarterbacks that I mentioned, the Jared Goffs, the Sam Darnolds, right? You want to see it in a big spot. Those are all fair criticisms. Seattle's defense is sneaky good. They are sneaky good. They get to the quarterback. The edges can blitz. The corners, they'll be very aggressive. They'll send them on blitzes. They're a very good tackling team. They're a good special teams squad as well. Darnold for the season, he's thrown 11 touchdowns, 3 picks. And here's the other thing. This is why I think this might be a better fit for Darnold. with Seattle. They're keeping him upright. He's not getting sacked. So he's got time to not panic. He's got time in the pocket, and that's kind of where you see that poise. I mean, Sam Darnold, he's only 28. Sam Darnold's got a lot of juice and a lot of life left in the NFL, and he's found a home, just like Baker Mayfield's found a home in Tampa Bay. I mean, we're talking about these teams right now that have buyer's remorse or they sold off too soon. I think Madman brought this up with the head coaches and the young quarterbacks a couple weeks ago. Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, reclamation projects. Geno Smith going up until last year, not this year per se. Coaching matters in the NFL. It flat out matters. And you got to be put in the right system with the right coaches and the right scheme to succeed. Some of these guys aren't. And that's what we see right now. I mean, you're the top over draft pick in Cam Ward. Now, I'm not the biggest Cam Ward fan. But now you get drafted. So as a franchise, the ownership group and the GM are looking at the head coach. That's your guy. Like, this is what bothers me about this move today. And again, I'm not going to suggest that Callahan is a good head coach. I'm not saying that. But you drafted Cam Ward, number 1 overall in April. This coach, wouldn't you like to, okay, let's see if it's working. Let's see if it's working. You get rid of him after 6 games. Like, are you guys not following me on that? Like, something's not right. Something's not right. Is this kid that bad where the coach takes the fall? Or is this coach that bad where you had to do it after 6 games? I know, okay, it's a second season. That's fine. But you got a rookie. Like, give it time. Now, you might sit there and I can already see Kevin from Jackson. I can already see Matt chiming in as well, Giant fans, because I know where you guys are going to go with this. Talking about Brian Daboll and Jackson Dart. I already seen enough of Brian Daboll. I just don't want him as my head coach going forward. If he makes Jackson Dart, turns him into a franchise quarterback, he's basically justified staying, then that's fine. Now, I think Brian Callahan, once he made the comment about Cam Ward, the ownership group and the GM basically said, that's it. You're on a very short leash. You're on an extremely hot seat. And you flat out say, quote, incredibly discouraged. I mean, he said, quote, now this is after another loss to the Raiders in which the offense did nothing. I watched a lot of that game because I wanted to focus a little more on Cam Ward. Quote, I'm incredibly discouraged by the outcome. We felt good coming into this game. To not be able to perform well in offense and not be able to score any points, then lose the game is disappointing. And we all got to be better. Now, this is what got him fired. Cam's a part of that too. Cam's got to play better football as well. We got to coach better. We got to play better, all those things. Now, is that a very harsh criticism? Tom Coughlin used to say the quarterback can't turn the ball over without saying Eli. I guess there's a way to do it. Are we that desensitized or sensitized? Like, I don't think this is a hard rip, because then he follows up and says, it's not all just him, but he is a part of it. And we like to be able to start seeing some more good football being played, and we got to do a better job. So that comment or him getting fired tells me they were looking to fire him no matter what. They were looking to fire him. They were just waiting to see if he said something. They were waiting to see if that offense was going to need up again. I think that move was a couple weeks out. But you question it, it's a little shocking because it happened 6 games into an NFL season. If the Eagles lose to Junior Jesus, are you going to say the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles are cooked? I mean, listen. You got problems. I don't know why you're so concerned about you want me to say a team's cooked so then they can turn around and go on a run? Is that your rationale? Listen, anyone that comes on this show You have free reign to say whatever the hell you want. You can take shots at me until the cows come home, even though that's just a made up expression. However, after 6 weeks, if you have the audacity, the stones, the onions, the scruples to start looking at playoff possibilities, you carry no weight with your comments. I remember asking before the season when Sean Payton became some great coach. We had a good conversation about it, but it's looking more and more like Breeze was a great quarterback. There's chicken or the egg. Chicken or the egg. 100%, right? Julian says, is Sean Payton like Bill Belichick when Brady left? Now that Sean doesn't have Drew, we see how good he really is. It's a great, great observation. Now, we're seeing Drake May flourish in New England. Does he do that under a Bill Belichick? I don't know. Sean Payton never wanted Russell Wilson. He wanted that prototypical passer. And even though Drew Brees wasn't the biggest of quarterbacks, he was very, I guess you can say, he was a gunslinger. He loved the fact that he can throw the ball down the field, got it out quickly, and that's how they ran their offense. It was all predicated, quick hitch, open it up, boom, and they can run the ball. The Saints were a very good team when it came to running screens. Now you got a big quarterback, you got a strong arm quarterback in Bo Nix. Sean Payton's got to unleash that. He has to. He has to let him throw the football down the field. Now, I don't know if it's 100% reluctance. I don't know if Bo Nix at times makes that questionable. Are you kidding me? Throw like running across your body to your right, throwing across the field. That's a no-no in the NFL. You can't do that. I'm a believer in Bo Nix. I was never the biggest fan of Sean Payton because, to your point, he had Drew Brees. He had a very good offense all those years. He also had the benefit of playing a weak division, and he also had the benefit of playing in a dome, believe it or not. And I know people are going to sit there and say, what difference does that make? It makes a lot of difference. It makes a hell of a lot of difference. It really does. It does. So I don't know. Look, guys won a Super Bowl. Again, you can't take that off his resume. You can't. Giants 6.5. That might be to play early. It might be. It might be. Listen, let that game be bet up 7.5 and run with it. This further removed from Breeze and Brady. He and the hoodie. Get the look. They might just be average coaches who had great quarterbacks. So it's an interesting kind of conversation or comment you're bringing up. Again, horse or the carrots, chicken or the egg. I think any successful quarterback in the NFL, Hall of Fame quarterback or Super Bowl winning quarterback, you have to have coaching. And I think any Hall of Fame head coach, you also have to have the roster and the players, and everyone's got to buy in. And New England was all about a culture. So when you have arguably the greatest quarterback in all time in Tom Brady, you still need a head coach. You need someone to man the ship. Even though Belichick was more concerned with the defensive side of the football, he brought in his guys, and it worked. And then Belichick got a little older, wanted too much power, got overwhelmed, tried to wear too many hats. We saw it with Andy Reid as well. Sometimes you wear too many hats, it's not good. You have to have confidence in those around you, and you have to delegate, just like at a job. And I think that's what hurt Andy Reid late in his tenure with the Eagles. And now you can also start to make the debate, if you kind of put their records up mano a mano. Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame head coach. It's not even a debate. It's not even a debate. All he needed was that one ring with Kansas City. I mean, the fact that you turn around the Philadelphia Eagles and then another franchise, that to me, you're a Hall of Fame winning head coach. No one's even talking about blowing games to Tampa and Carolina. No one's talking about not running the ball in the second half. No one's talking about having McNabb throw it and getting picked off 3 times. Why? Because he's won rings since then. But now it's almost like, okay, if you're going to put Belichick up there, where are we going to start to put Andy Reid? So I think it's a good debate discussion to have. It's tough now because Belichick's having that debacle in college. But I believe there's some legitimacy to that. Like, would Belichick have been as successful without Tom Brady? I don't think he would have. But I think it worked for both of them, right? It worked for both of them. Minnesota would kill to have, yeah, yeah. Because I don't, they might, Minnesota's now banking on a quarterback who got hurt again. Now you got Carson Wentz back there, right? They're not a plug and play. They're not. No, they're not. Because Carson Wentz has not looked good. I don't want to hear this nonsense. You're dismissing what Darnold did last year, where you could have made a case he was right there MVP. You could have made his numbers were off the chart. What you guys are doing, you're looking to the last game, Sunday Night Football, close out the regular season. He spit the bit against the Lions, and then in the playoffs. That happens. It happens sometimes. But I don't want to hear this nonsense about system quarterback. I will say this, and they brought it up last night, and it was a great point. Or no, I'm sorry. I think it was during the Tampa and San Francisco game. Coaching matters, and Baker Mayfield was the perfect example. So if you look at the head coach in Minnesota, he's a quarterback whisperer. He's a good head coach. But I'm not going to sit there and take away the type of he helped Darnold have that type of season. Now, if Carson Wentz puts up those numbers the rest of the way and resurrects his career, then we can start to have that conversation about plug and play. But let's give credit where credit is due. Sometimes these coaches make all the difference in the world. You have to have coaching. Look at Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was probably not going to put those numbers up in New York with Brian Daboll, but now he's in a good spot with what? A quarterback-driven head coach. Cleveland's got to have buyer's remorse. Baker gets hurt, jettison him. Here we go. Floats around. Now he's made a home with Tampa Bay, right? Bet the Browns wish they kept Baker. He's played at such a high level. It really is remarkable. It shows that we're so quick to just cast off these quarterbacks and say they're not good. These journeyman quarterbacks. We want to get rid of these guys. And now look at some of these guys. They find the right fit. They find a different home, and they turn out to be very good quarterback. Baker Mayfield is playing the best football of his career. Best football of his career. And, there's something to be said about that. That team's banged up as well. Mac Jones playing really well. He threw for over 347, 350, had a couple bad plays. I get it. But resurrecting his career. Mike Shanahan right now is showing that he's the guy for the job. Shouldn't be on the hot seat. They have too many injuries. And he's keeping them afloat. That was a tough loss. That was a tough game against a very good team in Tampa Bay. Right? I thought they find a way to win no matter what the quarterback is under O'Connell. He's an offensive guy, which finds a way to get wins, which brings up Stefanski. Perfect timing. Hey, I have no idea what's going to happen there. I have no idea. I'm shocked at this point. So this is what I'm hearing on Stefanski. First of all, they're having talk about the play calling responsibility, right? And there's no rhyme or reason offensively of what's going on. If I'm the Jets, knowing that Justin Fields is not the answer, and Tyrod Taylor is a bridge veteran quarterback, and the Browns just traded Flacco, which Mike Tomlin basically, poked at him. It made no sense. Whatever. In Cincinnati, made no sense. If I'm the Jets, I call Cleveland up right now, 4th or 5th, Gabriel or Shedeur. Now, I think they have a better chance. Now you guys are going to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Who is this guy talking behind the microphone? I think they have a better chance of getting Gabriel, and the Browns not willing to part way with Sanders, even though he hasn't taken a meaningful snap just yet. There's There's got to be someone in the building that has still advocated for Sanders, not named Kevin Stefanski. Not named Stefanski. Now, they need an offensive spark. They need to switch it up a little bit. And I'm not saying quarterback wise. Myles Garrett, Hall of Famer, hey man, you re-signed. I don't want to hear you talking about the offense and bitching and complaining, man. It's a bad football team right now. It's a bad football team. And you start to look at their schedule, they're 1-5. They got the Dolphins coming up. That is a winnable game. So if Gabriel goes out and plays well, you bought a little more time. Then you're at the Patriots. Tough defense. Maybe you lose that, but then you're at the Jets. That's a winnable game. The Ravens that are so banged up, I'm not going to tell you they can win it, but then the Raiders. So I'm trying to pinpoint, okay, if Gabriel continues to struggle and Stefanski, they keep calling for Stefanski's head or to make a change, maybe Sanders is in there against the Raiders. But if I'm the Jets, you need a quarterback right now. Low risk, high reward, 4th or 5th round draft pick. There you go. So the Cleveland situation is a mess. Q, have you noticed the bunker has lots of comments about other teams' misfortune, but will never man up on the day night of their own? But it's you're not the only one that's pointed that out. I mean, listen, the bunker decides, the bunker wants to spin their own narrative. They push their own agenda, right? And we know, we to the trained eye, because we can read the room, man. We see through the BS. It's not even fodder, it's BS. So what the bunker does, I mean, if the bunker, if they had any class, they would actually congratulate a guy like me for defeating them the other night. Now, did I partake in the game? Did I have a stat? I did not. But the Giants clipped the Philadelphia Eagles. But the bunker is so concerned about teams that I pick, like Washington and Denver when they make the Super Bowl. So to your point, exactly. I agree. Hey, Scruples had a great Q team over by the. Oh, really? Is it C team or D team? Just saying. I'm just saying. I mean, the bunker just might get a 2 or 3 day ban. I think a lot of success in the NFL comes down to who likes whom. If they like you, they give you time to grow and get good, or you have to be drafted by a well-run team that has a plan. You see the Browns are favored this week in the Toilet Bowl round 1 game. I think the coaches are playing for their job. I think at this point we're beyond that. We're beyond these guys playing for their job. You know, you mentioned that the Browns have Miami. So, did you guys hear what Tua said? So Tua comes out and he called out teammates. You know, because he basically saying, listen, guys got to show up. Guys got to sell out, right? That's a quarterback speech. You know, he's shocked by the latest losses, right? Teams not, you know, they're trying to not take that championship, that approach, that mental toughness, right? We have guys showing up to a player-only meeting late, guys not showing up to a player-only meetings. There's a lot that goes into that. Do we have to make that mandatory? Do we not have to make that mandatory? So it's a lot of things of that nature that we got to get cleaned up. It starts with the little things like that. Now, McDaniel was asked about that and mentioned about player-led meetings. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But here's the thing. When you start to have player-only meetings 3, 4, 5 weeks in the NFL season, that's never a good thing. That's when coaches are getting fired, and that's when players have checked out. Period. But what's funny about this is that, you know, Tua's comments were kind of caught by, I guess, a former player that had a cup of coffee. Like a cup of coffee with Miami. And the player was Deshaun Hamilton, and he tweeted, "This dude, the starting quarterback, was late to the first team meeting during my 3 seconds on the Dolphins, and everything was all cool in there." So when it rains, it pours. And by the way, maybe Brian Flores was right about Tua. Remember? Remember we had the conversation a year or two ago? He's coming out basically calling the quarterback soft. Tua, you're making a lot of money, man, and you haven't lived up to that contract extension, and you're constantly injured. You've got concussed. You're inconsistent. You're not a good quarterback right now. That is the comment. Now, we want players to be transparent, just like Vince mentioned, coaches to be transparent. There are certain comments, there's etiquette. That comment stays in the locker room. That comment, that's a rat comment. That's a snitch. That's a snitch. That comment does not belong outside of Miami Dolphins locker room. It just doesn't. And you make a comment like that, and I can tell you this, that offensive line, those linemen, those tackles are looking around. You think they're going to block just as hard and pass protect for you next week? That's how you break up a locker room. That's how a locker room becomes divided. And it's gone from bad to worse with that franchise because they want that head coach gone. That coach, like Aaron Glenn, talking himself out of a job. Talking himself out of a job, period. 5 o'clock straight up on the East Coast, 16 to book, 60 to play with. Lloyd Vance joins me at 5:20. We'll keep it here. We'll keep going through your comments. Coach quarterback combo is the most important thing in football. One makes the other look great. Happens both ways, but usually it's the coach who finds a guy to deploy the system when that works well. I think the Bucs are doing very well with their plug-and-play players. Yesterday it showed they got a lot of injuries. That rookie wide receiver is a beast. The man continues. It's an unstoppable combo. Yeah. Think about all these great coaches over the last 20, 30, 40 years in the NFL. A handful of them, right? Maybe 5, 6, 7 of them. But they all had great quarterbacks, and they made it work. They made it work. They didn't have to get along, too. Chuck Noll, Terry Bradshaw made it work. Montana had such respect for Walsh, and Walsh basically gave him the keys to the castle. Go out and do what you do best. Even to a lesser extent, Marino and Shula, Reeves and Elway. Okay, fine. We're not talking Super Bowls, but you know where I'm going with this. Brady and Belichick. Eli and Coughlin. Roethlisberger and Cowher. Goes even Andy Reid and Donovan to a lesser extent. Now Reid to Mahomes. You don't have to like the guy, but there's the head coach quarterback relationship is very unique. It's very unique. It's not like the NBA. We're talking about an NBA coach and the point guard. No. We're not talking about a manager and a goalie, or a coach and a goalie, or a manager and a starting pitcher. We're not. It's the head coach and the quarterback. Head coaches lose their jobs because of poor quarterback play. Quarterbacks get coaches fired because of poor quarterback play. Coaches look like geniuses when they get great quarterback play. And great quarterbacking play often saves a head coach's job. That's it in a nutshell. But they have to work hand in hand. They have to. And these young quarterbacks, they're struggling. And that's typically what happens. They have to be in the right system. But there's something to be said about some of these other quarterbacks that are now second leg, second arc of their career. And they're starting to find it. It's starting to click. It's starting to make sense. Maybe they're late bloomers. I don't know. Daniel Jones was not meant to be quarterback in the New York Giants. The pressure, the bright lights, it was too much for him. And he was off injured and very sporadic and inconsistent. But I also blame coaching. Now he's just flourishing in Indianapolis. Cleveland wrote off Baker Mayfield, too small, too inconsistent, injury prone, banged up, get him the hell out of here. Baker Mayfield, to his credit, hung in there. I mean, if you're less of a man, of a person, maybe you think the NFL is not for you. But Baker has that chip on his shoulder. So, I mean, imagine Baker's running, what was it, the scout team? Playing like DB when he was with Carolina. Then remember, he had a cup of coffee with the Rams, and then he won that game on Monday night. And then he cashed in with the Bucs. I mean, that's a great story. It really, you can only admire and respect a guy like Baker Mayfield, and he plays with such toughness, man. I mean, the scramble he was making yesterday against the 49ers, kid refuses to go down. Like he's a player you root for. Darnold is a player you root for. Geno Smith, player you root for. These guys have had such bumps in the road. Geno Smith got, punched out in the locker room. Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts dealing with mono with the Jets. So there's something to be said about their character, and they hang in, and then they finally find a home, and they're succeeding, and they're playing really good football, over the last several years, right? Over the last several years. So again, I think that some of these young guys, man, I'm telling you, what am I doing? Hold on a second. This isn't unstoppable. Hold on. As quarterbacks get older, they figure out how to win without a great coach. What the F is happening right now? I I mean, I got 60 something odd comments. I don't know. We're giving you good content. What's the problem? AI is getting out of hand. This isn't a live recording. What? What are you guys talking about? I don't know. Did something happen? I haven't even checked. Did something happen with the rest of the broadcast? Did I miss something? I, I Wow. I don't know. Do I take a timeout? I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I really don't know. What are you guys talking about? Why? Is it because I'm not as animated as who am I trolling? I'm not trolling anyone. What am I saying? That's a troll. Uh, the AI is getting out of hands. I saw the other day, and I had to do it. I had to do a double check. It was a kid petting a friggin' great white. Like the shark literally jumped on the boat and the kid was petting it. I'm like, there's no way this shit is real. It's not happening. That shark would eat that kid whole, like in Jaws. Remember the little Alex Kittner kid, right? I mean, I had to do a double take. I'm like, this is wow. Like this is like if this is AI generated, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And I was then you see the ones where they take the flipper, they take the dolphin, right? And they got all the things on them, and then they wash them off and they scrape them, they wash them off, they put them in a pillowcase, they wrap them up, they stick them in the bed, they a little lullaby, and then all of a sudden a flipper's taking a nap in someone's human bed, then they're out to sea. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is not real. Flipper's not going on land. It's not happening. Sharks jumping on boats and little kids petting sharks. I did do a double take. I did see the one of God rest her soul, Sister Jean, who passed away, was like literally crossing over players on the floor. I mean, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. I don't know. I'm not trolling you guys. We're trying to give you good content on a Monday. That's all. I don't. This is unbelievable. Like what is this? What 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 I don't know. Tell me what I said. Someone please tell me exactly what I said that would, uh, you know, that would be the definition of a troll. I'm giving you good content today. We're talking about all these games, all these quarterbacks. The Tua thing was ridiculous. I manned up 17 times today. I manned up 17 times today. I'm not really sure exactly what you want. Julian chimes in. I think the Bucs are doing well with coaching plug and play players. Yesterday, I think that's why Baker's doing good in Tampa, and his coaches are letting him run the line and play an autoplay if necessary and give him the free range that he needs, which is helping at the end. I agree. Monday Marcus chimes in. Q, I know you're not trolling anyone. I think these guys are just breaking your balls. I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. Kevin chimes in. Q, think about this. Judy was traded from the Broncos to the Browns last season for a 6th and 4th round pick. Could it be on the trade block again? If that's the case, can the Giants get him for a similar price tag? Only 26 years old, could be a long-term piece for the Giants at an affordable price, perhaps. Giants definitely need a wide receiver. Maybe A.J. Brown's in the market, right? As much crap as we gave Andy, he was ahead of his time with the ultra pass happy offense. Yeah, but there were also times he had to run the football. Remember that NFC Championship game where they lost to Carolina and McNabb was picked off 3 times by Ricky Manning Jr. I remember I spoke to John Runyon after that game, and we asked him at the time, what was the message you were trying to convey at the halftime, and he basically said, "Run the effing football." They refused to run the football in that game. They refused to run that football in that game. and just had McNabb drop back to pass happy. Tua sounded like a bunker boy on this podium. Yeah, on the podium. Yeah, that is a rat move, right? Definitely. That was definitely a rat move, 100%. Death Star has taken over these comments. This is great comedy at its finest. Listen, I don't know. Maybe I'm lost. Maybe I need to reshuffle the deck here. Who knows? I don't know. So, I must have said, there's something I had to say. Oh, wait. Me and Vinny were losing our when you said Cleveland would rather keep Sanders instead of Gabriel. They would. They would. I'm telling you right now. Listen, you guys, it wasn't a Stefanski draft pick. Okay? It wasn't a Stefanski draft pick. That was a Berry pick. That was an ownership pick, right? If I asked you right now, well, I should say an ownership pick, pardon me, an ownership pick. Stefanski didn't want Sanders. I think we kind of know that, right? That's why, Berry basically addressed all the stuff that was going on, right? He's kind of been outspoken when they were talking about the speeding ticket, all that stuff. So just bear with me. Let me just clarify a couple things. Bear with me. Just because Gabriel has got the start, there's got to be a reason that Cleveland is still obviously hanging on to Sanders. Is there not? Is there not a reason they're still hanging on to Shedeur Sanders? Deshaun Watson's not going to play another down. Okay? So obviously he's the backup quarterback right now. So you need another quarterback on the roster. But even when they had Flacco, you could have made the case. Why are they still holding on to this kid? Is it possible? Now just follow along with me. Is it possible that someone in that coaching staff or on that coaching staff sees something in Shedeur Sanders? I'm not 180ing at all. Is it possible somebody sees something, okay, with Sanders and they're holding on to him because they believe there's some value? Again, if I'm the Jets, I call up the Browns right now and try to trade for Shedeur Sanders. You're not going to get it done with Taylor. You're not going to get it with Fields, and you got a quarterback on the cheap. So again, you explain to me, then why is he still on the roster? Someone from the Browns has to sit there and say, okay, keep him on the roster. We need a backup, obviously. That's you guys, you look at this situation in Cleveland, and again, I don't know, maybe it's me. No, Sanders to New York is not trolling. It's not how is that trolling? Seriously, how is that trolling? That's not trolling. Aaron Glenn's not going to make it. Aaron Glenn's going to be one and done. He's going to be one and done. Yeah, that's just rough. That's just rough. Westbrook was at that game. Now they threw. Listen, they. I know exactly. I covered that game. I was there. I know. McNabb shouldn't have dropped back to pass so many times. Nope. 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 He was horrible that game. He was absolutely horrible that game. They needed to run the football in that game. They had to. They had to run the football in the game. That was a perfect example. That was a game where, first of all, Carolina, let's be honest. Was Carolina a good football team that year? 11-5, right? They didn't do anything offensively. The Eagles are at home in an NFC championship. They were favored by 4 or 5 points. I mean, it's just, that was horrible. Didn't Detmer come in that game too, right? I mean, you had Buckholter. You had Deuce. Run these guys. Run them. Run them. Deuce was like over 80 yards. That's the one game that Andy Reid says as a head coach, it's one of the games that he regrets. Not even the Tampa Bay loss. QTE. Huh. Why is the NFL having Monday Night 2 against both LCS? Because they know that they can get away with it. Because the NFL fan is going to watch first and foremost. It's a scheduling quirk too. I can't stand it. Because right now, isn't Seattle and Toronto's going on right now. That's number one. Now, who cares about Milwaukee and the Dodgers unless you're in that market? I mean, think about it. Scheduling wise, you got 7:15, 8:15. You already got the top of the first in this game. So this game will probably finish by, if it's 5 o'clock, 7:30, 8, and then you're really going up against the Dodgers in Milwaukee. And you're carrying over Buffalo and Atlanta. I personally would have had Buffalo and Atlanta 8:15. Chicago and Washington can be earlier. I'm not trolling. I'm not trolling. Sarge says I'm trolling. I'm not. I'm not. Beast was the truth. Saw him play at Nova versus Youngstown State. Immediately said that kid is going to the league. Then on draft night screamed, "Oh my God!" when he was drafted. Holy blah blah blah. None of my boys know why. Talking about Mitchell. I mean, talking about Westbrook. Westbrook was a great player. They're not going to stop it because they're making money off of it. That's why. I watched the alternate Amazon Prime version of the Giants and the Eagles the other day. I didn't like it. The camera angle, not a fan. There are reports that the Bengals offered a third for Sanders before they got Flacco. I saw that too. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. I think if you're the Jets, you call up either for Gabriel or Sanders. They need a quarterback. That was worst game ever. Worse than 0-2. That was a bad game because you had a good team. You had a great team that year. You had a really good team. Eagles could have won the Super Bowl that year. Absolutely. Could have easily won the Super Bowl. They only lost 4 games that year. And if you remember, they started the season 0-2. And then they had the loss against the Cowboys, and then they lost in overtime to San Francisco. Andy Reid had a great run with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't care what anyone says. You get the 4 straight NFC championships. Yep. 4-headed, 3-headed monster. Yeah. They were able to run the football, man. Deuce, right? Correll Buckhalter. Remember Correll Buckhalter? He was a really good running back. The problem was the injuries. Westbrook, great player, young player, right? But they ran that year, they ran for like 1,600 total yards, but it was definitely your running back by committee. Yep. Kind of like what the Giants did a couple years ago when they had Bradshaw, Jacobs, and Ward. And Ward had 250 something odd yards in that Carolina game, Sunday Night Football. That was a bad loss by the Philadelphia Eagles. Bad loss. Chicago has no business in prime time. Yeah, but remember now, again, it's all about the scheduling, right? It's just how it falls in favor. I mean, we can't, even when we argue about these bad Thursday night games, it's like one of these, well, you're looking at the Thursday night game and the quality of play is really bad, blah, blah, blah. We got a visitor. Oh, there she is. She just ate. She's all ready to go. Look at that. She's ready to go. She's all ready for Monday Night Football, which means we got to bring up Lloyd in a second. So with that, we will finally take a timeout. Broncos country, let's ride. Miguel, your Broncos do not look. I'll say this, Michael. I don't want to say this because I had the Broncos going to the Super Bowl, but I'm going to say it. Giants might pick off the Broncos next week. All right, we got to get to Kiki settled. We got to get to more comments. And then when I bring up Lloyd, I'm going to see if Lloyd thinks I'm trolling. All right, so we'll do that on the other side. Quick timeout, 20 to play with. We'll take up to 6. All right, 20 past 5 o'clock hour. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock. Wow, man, so many comments are coming in. Let me just read these off. Mark and Wallingford chime in and Q. Did you see that Thompson's coming back? I can care less about the Phillies. Sorry to break it to you. Dave chimes in. Q. Do you see the Giants in the market for a wide receiver? We'll get into that. He also follows up. Look at the Colts roster. They got a couple young players. Okay. Mike in Ohio chimes in. Q. You were definitely trolling the Browns. Let me bring in my guy, Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football and Sports Radio 1029 FM. The Game. Kind enough to join me on a Man Up Monday, or as we like to say, Lunes Manolo Mentioso Radio de Lucador. Man Up Monday. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Doing good, Q. It was some good football, and there was some bad football, particularly that first game of Sunday over in London was just a tough watch, but overall some good action this week.
Well, let me ask you this. Little surprised that they didn't bench Justin Fields. I think Aaron Glenn might be one and done. He's saying things that often will get a coach fired. He's very defiant. And I can only speak from what transpired over the last several years with the McAdoos, the Shermers, and the judges of the world. When you go up there and you say asinine things, like, for instance, saying the quarterback didn't play well, but then saying you're not going to bench the quarterback, it's okay that he didn't play well, and you don't bench him just because he didn't play well, or calling out a reporter for asking that question. To me, I think he's on borrowed time, and I think they are a bad franchise at this moment. Now, I ask you your thoughts on Glenn, some of the play calling and the debacle that transpired in the second half or towards the end of the first half first. So give me your thoughts on just the Jets yesterday, anemic offense, Fields was horrible, and then the nonsense, late in the first half where the clock management was just horrible.
Yeah, it was just a poor effort overall by the Jets, and Ingstrand. It starts with him. I think a lot of times he's the offense coordinator, and they're running the football up the middle. Q, first down, second down, obvious passing down on third down, and then Fields. He's not seeing the field. Q, 3-step drop. He's not getting the ball out of his hand. He's looking to make big plays or something to rabbit out of the hat, and he's just getting sacked over and over again. Yes, the offensive line would. Membu and some of these other young guys is a work in progress, but just a terrible effort by them. And it was a winnable game. They take the lead on a safety in the end zone. And then when you look at the Denver Broncos, Q, I think they kind of forgot they had to play a game. I think they went over there and they kind of joined themselves. And they just were sloppy as well. They were lucky to get a win over there.
So I mentioned this, and the Jets need a quarterback. And everyone, they know, I don't know what Sanders is going to be. And we've talked ad nauseum about Gabriel and Sanders and Stefanski. But if you're the Jets, why wouldn't you call Cleveland up right now for one of those quarterbacks?
Yeah, the Jets definitely need to start playing for the future. And to get back to your earlier question, Aaron Glenn, he's going to have to turn this thing around. He has to prove that he's a head coach. He was an okay defense coordinator with the Lions, but as you said, you have to, have a plan in place. And Woody Johnson, Chris Johnson, who run the Jets organization, they definitely are watching this thing. 0-6. It's just an ugly situation. They need to find a win. And yeah, Tyrod Taylor at this stage in his career, he's an older quarterback. They already know what they're getting with him, but he could provide some stability, and also he would run the offense effectively.
Is Glenn talking himself out of a job right now?
He could, and we've seen. It's crazy on his staff. He has Steve Wilkes right on his own staff, and he was a one and done coach, and we've seen it more and more lately. Q, where teams just are not going to wait on these coaches and give them the long leash that they used to, where owner would say, okay, you have 3 years to turn this system around. But especially in their own division, they're looking up at everybody. And it's ugly with the Jets. It's ugly with the Dolphins. And you think, yeah, change may be coming. You saw it today. The Titans said enough is enough with Callahan. We're only 6 games into this season.
Speaking of which, 6 games in, Callahan, I got an interesting text that basically, in so many words, that was doing the father a favor, and they didn't build a coaching staff. Now, I also believe, second season, but you draft a quarterback number one overall. You believe you have a franchise quarterback. There are, there are coaches that can say certain things that maybe they can kind of weather that storm. But then Callahan taking the shots at Cam Ward, do you think that was adding insult to injury? And that was pretty much the last straw there.
Yeah, well, Amy Adams Strong, who's the owner of the organization, she had her eye on this. They got rid of Rand Carthon, who brought Callahan in as the general manager position. They bring in Mike Borgonzi in, and Borgonzi was not on the same page with Callahan. You could see right away, and their plan is to develop Ward. He was a solid player at the University of Miami, and he comes in there. He's just looking frantic. He's not hitting his reads, and they said enough's enough. Build around somebody else, and there's not a lot there. Q right now, it's looking like okay, they're top five, and they need to maybe trade Simmons and a couple of these other pieces because they need to plan for their future.
Yeah, you look at all the GMs that they brought in, the firings and the hirings. I mean, it just looks bad, and we don't know yet if that kid's going to be a good quarterback or not. How about the Philadelphia Eagles? This kid Smith turns around and just like that decides he's going to retire, and he's actually been one of their better defensive players this season. Now, again, I don't know how much you want to read into this, but the fact that he just turns around and then boom, we're 5 games in, 6 games in, but Darius Smith decides he's going to retire, does it on social media. You hear something like that, you see something like that. What are you thinking?
Well, he's a veteran guy, Q. He's been in the league over 10 years, and maybe his body's beat up or something, but he's kind of bounced around the last couple of years. It was a personal decision, I think, but yeah, it's got to be like they need him. When you look at it in terms of on the field, Jalix Hunt has not performed the way they thought he would. Nolan Smith as well, and they're really missing Brandon Graham and that leadership on that defensive line. They didn't have Jalen Carter in this past game, and you saw once again when he's not in there, the Eagles' defense is not the same. So, yeah, it's a big blow to this defense. They're also hurting in terms of Quinyon Mitchell. He's probably not going to play next couple of weeks with this hamstring injury. So the Eagles, they're the hunted now, and the Giants were hungry, and I think they kind of looked past them, and the Giants, with Dart and Scatterboo, they just took it to them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's probably one of their best wins over the last 15, 20 years, probably better than the win that they had on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us as well, host of Lloyd Vance's Football, SR 1029 FM, The Game. And of course, you can catch him every Monday night, 8 to 9. Yeah, I think maybe, too, when you get a player to retire just like that abruptly, it's kind of bizarre. 4, 5, 6 games into the season, maybe he wasn't flat out all in. But the bottom line is, that's a hit defensively for the Philadelphia Eagles. You look around the NFL, a lot of injuries, right? We're seeing it. Baltimore, San Francisco, players are going down left and right. And then, a team that I pretty much wrote off, Kansas City, has a very big win last night at home against the Lions. I guess kind of the point is you can't figure out this league at all. I was quick to dismiss Kansas City because I still think they have some issues offensively, but that's a tough spot to go into. But offensively, they woke up. Patrick Mahomes starting to really show that Mahomesian kind of form. Maybe I was quick to write them off. But you look around the AFC West, Raiders got to win, Chargers got to win, Denver got an ugly win. Are we going to say Kansas City's back right now, or is it just pump the brakes?
Well, Q, they're moving in the right direction. And now they get Rashee Rice come back from suspension this week. And Mahomes is looking more comfortable in the pocket. I was surprised how well that line played without Simmons. Didn't play last evening, and they did a good job in terms of shutting down Hutchinson. And he's getting the ball out of his hands. Worthy got involved. Finally, they got some rushing kind of attack with, Pacheco. He finally led them in rushing, and it wasn't all on Patrick Mahomes. So, they're improving at the right time. But that division is tough. All the teams are winning, as you said, and you have the Chargers in there, and they're playing some good football. And Denver's defense has a lot of teeth. They had 9 sacks this week.
Lloyd, we agree after hearing your tone on Sanders all off season, suggesting that anyone would trade for him is a troll job. Didn't you say that Sanders was going to start week one?
I said I thought he would have the opportunity. When you
Yeah.
looked at the depth chart, that
Yeah.
they got rid of Kenny Pickett's, and we knew that Joe Flacco's just
Yeah.
an old guy, old shell of himself, and Dylan Gabriel is what he is. He I keep telling you, he's like a Detmer quarterback. He's a guy that's a good college quarterback. He's not a pro guy, and his arm strength's not what it needs to be. So I think that Sanders will get his opportunities. But my caveat in terms of all that offseason stuff is Cleveland's just a mess. They have no plan, no rhyme or reason. It was funny because Mike Tomlin in his presser talked about what were they doing trading Joe Flacco in
Troll
division.
job. Troll job.
So it's like, it's tough to figure out what Cleveland's doing. They have a mess there as well. And Stefanski, who I think is a pretty good coach, I think he may not survive.
I just think at this point, you need to turn around, and if you're trying to save your job, you're trying to save your job, right? And like with Tennessee, I think it's more of an ownership issue, to be quite honest with you. And then you listen to what's going on in Miami. I mean, Tua, that is if we're going old school, code of the street, a rat does that. I mean, seriously, a rat. You had that player that had a cup of coffee, not a fresh roasted cup of coffee, but a cup of coffee for like 3 seconds with Miami and said the dude was late for all these meetings. You have Tua up there, and basically he's deflecting, which, oh, by the way, I know a group of guys that do that when we get into the Eagles nonsense. They deflect, but that's a story for another
Yeah,
day.
you
But
you
that's
keep that
exactly what Tua's doing.
correct. You keep that stuff in house, and as the quarterback, you have to be the leader. You can't air the dirty laundry of your organization. And he clearly is not on the same page with Mike McDaniel. He'll probably be the next person that he throws underneath the bus. It's looking more and more like he's going to be on the unemployment line as well. They're 1-5, and that was a winnable game. And they Chan, he was playing hard in this one. The defense was still had some teeth, but Tua had 3 interceptions in the game. So he needs to look in the mirror first and foremost and say, okay, maybe it's not everybody else, it's me.
Couple of reports coming down that the NFL suspending Lions defensive back Brian Branch 1 game for a slap of Smith Schuster after Sunday night's loss in Kansas City for Cleveland. I'm sorry, for Detroit. Yeah, man. And Hutchinson kind of took a bush league shot at Mahomes. There's no place for that kind of nonsense, man. There's really no place. I mean, we talk about players getting cut for doing foolish things, and you just can't do that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, he's a sore loser, and there's been some other things with him in terms of, his attitude and his character issues. So it was a bush league thing for him to do to Juju Smith-Schuster. Yes, he hit him from behind, and Mahomes kind of flexed on him on that first touchdown where he ran it in. But you're professional football players. This is not high school. Where there's a lot of animosity and all this stuff. He should have just walked away. And to Dan Campbell's credit, he apologized and disparaged him. But a lot of times, Q, I think this stuff comes from the top. When he's talk about this aggressive attitude and all the stuff, and sometimes players with wrong actions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not literally, right? You're not going to go down there and bite the kneecaps. Eagle 6 on X chimes in. Q, thank you. You're the only friggin' person that's actually brought this up, not the clowns in Philly down the dial talking about why Smith retired. There's a fraction and an issue going on in that locker room. Now, again, I don't listen, as you know, down the dial crap because it's romper room nonsense to me. But when a player does decide to retire in season on a team that's a defending Super Bowl champ, even though he's coming over a new player, whatever, productive player, and you've got the issues going on with the OC and Patullo and Sirianni trying to back him and support him, and then Saquon inadvertently maybe throwing him under the bus to stuff with A.J. Brown. You get the Kelseys that's just, after a while, ad nauseum, basically saying whatever they're saying on the pod and kind of calling out the scheme and Baldinger and it's all 22. Like, something's got to give. Now, everything changes when you start winning football games. But what happens if the Eagles go out and their offense sputters against Minnesota and they come back and they lose to the Giants? Now, again, I'm just saying they're a 4-4 team after 8 games, and they got to go on the road to Green Bay. They have the Lions and the Cowboys coming up. Can we talk about leaks, cracks in the armor, so to speak? To me, I think this is a situation where you don't want the season to get out of hand. And I'm not suggesting that it is at 4-2, but for a team that's 4-2, I've never seen so many issues on a team that's 4-2 after 6 games and the defending Super Bowl champs. We've seen this happen in teams in the past where if you don't nip it in the bud right away, it gets out of hand and your whole season can implode.
True, true. They're at a crossroads, and it reminds me a couple of years ago where the season was going down the tubes, and then everybody saw it, and they had that losing streak going into that Tampa Bay playoff game, and it didn't get any better. And maybe it's a Darius Smith, and you talk about all the ideal pieces of this situation. He's a veteran guy, ring chasing. You think he'd want to be there, but maybe it's like Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon. I'm too old for this. You know what? He doesn't want to be around this mess, and he may not be gelling with some of these young guys and on the defense. And yeah, they have a lot of fires, and it's crazy because they won last year in dominating fashion. So you'd say, okay, they brought most of the band back together, but something is amiss with this team. And I put it on Sirianni. It is on, it's on his desk. He wants to be considered like a McVay, like Belichick and Andy Reid and all these other guys, like a leader of men. Well, it's time for him to clean up this locker room, maybe take over play calling and just make an insular kind of change internally.
We talked a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys. D is a big Dallas Cowboys fan. He says, please do me a favor and just rip them to threads. We mentioned this on Back Your Play on Thursday when we dropped it on Friday. We talked about if you want to be taken serious, then that's a game that you have to win. And they're scoring a lot of points, but they're giving up a lot of points. I'm sorry, you have no business losing to Carolina.
They did. This is a game where they showed really who they are, Q. They're front runners, and everything's easy when their opponent kind of rolls over and Dak Prescott's putting up the big stats. And they did, Pickens did have some nice plays, but Rico Dowdell, franchise record, 239 all-purpose yards in this game. Bryce Young played very well in this game, 3 touchdowns. Ted McMillan. I mean, Carolina's they're a young team.
Right.
And they're just going out there and competing, and their roster, man for man, Dallas is way better. But the Panthers went out there and they put up the fight, and next thing you know, Dallas is kind of struggling, and then they kind of rolled over.
Sean, Eagles fan on Facebook, says locker room has alluded to this with all the various opinions on why they're looking a mess right now, is calling this out along with Brian Johnson. We need someone who's a successful game caller, not a learn-on-the-job candidate. We're not in a rebuild year, but right now we're probably starting to look that way. And then D chimes in on his Dallas Cowboys. What did he say about? I think he said the same thing about Rico. I'll pull that up in a second. That's a bad loss by the Cowboys. I mean, is Schott? I mean, can we see a scenario where Schottenheimer's also one and done?
Yeah, Q. If the right guy's available, And Jerry Jones, he wants to make that splash. He wants that big name coach maybe to come in there and attach it to the star mentality. He would, and face it, Brian Schottenheimer really was second, third choice. Nobody really interviewed him. They said, okay, you can have the job. And Jerry Jones said, I can kind of control this guy, kind of like the way Garrett was for a lot of years. But that team, they did not make the adjustments in that game. I watched a lot of it, and they just had to get a couple key stops. And They just couldn't do it. They just could not do it.
That's what Naaman says. Unbelievable. Our defense can't stop a nosebleed. Being there made it much worse. He was at the game. He was hitting me up on Facebook flying back. Once they got the PI on 3rd and 7, I knew the game was over. Rico effing Dowd. Eber F. Didn't do anything to stop it, not even selling out on the runs to make Bryce beat you. That's kind of been the story of the NFL too with some of these teams, right? They can put up a lot of points offensively, but then you look what they do defensively. They've got some issues a little bit. I thought a very entertaining game was the 49ers and Tampa Bay. Now I was high on Mac Jones. I know he threw for close to 350, couple fumbles. The picks not there. I get it. They lose Warner. They've got injuries. Tampa Bay's not fully at 100%, but how about the year or the last several years that Baker Mayfield has had. I mean, it's amazing to think that, he's drafted number one overall 2018, couple seasons with Cleveland, cast off. Here you go, Carolina, the Rams, and now he's shown that he is not only a franchise quarterback, but he is an MVP candidate over the last several years, and he's putting together marvelous numbers for a team in Tampa Bay that I guess by virtue of the Eagles stubbing their toe, the Lions with some issues, Green Bay a little inconsistent, maybe the class of the NFC right now.
Yeah, Q, they're 5-1. You know what I mean? And I was talking to my son about this just earlier today. He was like, "Who's the best team in NFC?" And then you guys say it's Tampa Bay. And they lose Becca in this game, and they didn't have Bucky Irvin, but he's willing his team to victory. And there was a 3rd and 14 scramble. He had that 45-yard strike to Tez Johnson of all people to set up the game winner, and he's playing at a very high level, and they're finding ways to win. And then defensively with Vita Vea and Winfield Jr., they're doing just enough. So Todd Bowles doing a great job, and yes, you got to put Baker Mayfield in that conversation as
I
MVP.
mean, he's losing receivers left and right.
Yeah,
I mean,
they think they may get Mike Evans back this week, but you're right, Q. You're like, who is he throwing his football to? But he's finding Otten at the tight end position, and he's just finding ways to win. And losing Fred Warner, that was a big loss for the
huge.
Niners in this game, and they kind of exploited that.
The Colts have scored 194 points through 6 games, most any Colts team has ever scored in the first 6 games of a season in franchise history. Now, that's kind of a eye-opening, jaw-dropping stat when you think about some of those offenses they had with Peyton Manning. But here it is, Indiana Jones, my guy, a guy that I never gave up on, Nichols, Daniel Jones. Yeah, I mean, he was just so frustrating. But I did say, to be fair, I hope he does ball out in Indianapolis. And now you get Anthony Richardson can't even stretch with a rubber band, pokes his eye. He might be done with the Colts. I mean, but it's it's fun to watch. And I can again, it kind of goes to the theme of appreciating these quarterbacks and these guys that they're not giving up, right? And Daniel Jones, new opportunity, change of scenery, with a head coach that knows how to handle quarterbacks, and that team is thriving right now.
Yeah, Q, and we talked about this. He could be this season's Sam Darnold, where he comes out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And resurrects his career, and it's a good situation for him. Steichen is on the same page with him. They have a lot of weapons there, whether it's Pittman, they have Downs. Warren is playing very well, could be an offensive rookie of the year type candidate. And don't forget about Jonathan Taylor. He's running downhill, and the defense is doing a nice job. The Cardinals, to their credit, Jacoby Brissett put up a pretty good fight in this game, and losing Marvin Harrison Jr. to that concussion, that was big for them. But the Colts, they just stayed the course, and Daniel Jones is efficient. We always talked about he's a fumbler. He has turned the football over too much. Well, he's protecting the football, and then conversely, their defense is getting a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, Green Bay got the win yesterday. The Rams got the win. We like the Rams. Thought they were going to cover the number as well. Seattle, very impressive with their defense. Darnold playing exceptional football. We mentioned the Cowboys in that loss. The Steelers rolling over Cleveland. New England quietly 4-2. The Chargers quietly 4-2. They were able to get back to their winning ways. Right now, with Kansas City showing a little bit of juice on life, and then you have Buffalo, the class of the AFC East. If you kind of handicap it, and we're only 6 weeks through, obviously the Bills play Atlanta tonight, but who, in your mind right now, is the most complete team in the AFC?
Oh, well, that's a great one. It's tough, but I will go with the Bills. I know they had a bad loss. It was a close one to New England, but there are some upstarts that are going to challenge them for the crown. I think a big thing is the Bills' schedule. The schedule's a little like you. They only play 5 teams that made the playoffs last year. And then you talk about they got to play the Jets, they got to play Miami, and that'll kind of backload them to kind of host that playoff game on their turf. But the Chiefs are getting healthy at the right time. We thought New England would be one of the breakout teams, and they really are. Drake May is playing extremely well. And defensively, you have Christian Gonzalez and those guys making a lot of plays. So, yeah, they're a nice team, and Denver's defense is in the mix. So, pretty wide open all over the league. And as we said, it's very early. So, the next few weeks, we'll get some more of the sorting out.
I think it doesn't Rishi Rice come back too. His 6 game suspension's over.
Correct. It's over, and Andy Reid is
Oh,
really the one.
I might have a lot of egg on my face with that one. Oh boy, saying
Yeah,
it's
and their schedule's kind of shaken out, and the one I wanted to ask you about is Baltimore at 1-5. They're coming off a bye, but their schedule could set up where, as crazy it sounds, they could get back in the mix. And Baltimore is going to play the Steelers in week 14, but they have some winnable games. Chicago.
Are we going with the caveat that Lamar Jackson's back?
He should be back from that hamstring injury after.
All right, go ahead. Give me.
Okay.
Let me walk. Go ahead. Let me walk through. You give me their
Yep.
schedule. What do you got?
Chicago, at Miami, at Minnesota, at Cleveland, the
Wow,
the Jets, Cincinnati, and
wow.
then they play Pittsburgh in week 14. As crazy as it sounds, they could be 7-5 going into that game.
You know, here's the thing: Chicago. How limited is Jackson going to be? Okay. Um, Miami, Minnesota, the Browns, Jets, Cincinnati. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. They would have to run the table. They would have to be 7-5. 6-6 is very damaging, knowing that you still have the Patriots, Packers, and the Steelers left. The Steelers twice, right? But yeah, I did not even consider that. It's just their defense is so bad,
Yeah,
but
they're
they're
so
also playing
yeah,
teams that are offensively inept.
right, right. So and that's I just brought them up to prove. It's a roller
Ah,
coaster,
hey,
man. And you know it from the Giants teams. I mean, 9-7, and
yeah.
they get in, and then
But
10-6.
they also 0-2, 1-5, a different animal. Like if the Giants were to beat the Saints and beat the Cowboys, different story. When they won in 07, they started 0-2. 1-5 is like almost a death sentence,
Yeah, it should be. It should be.
right?
It should be. But that
But
schedule's
now with the expanded playoffs, the wild card,
yeah. You get spot 5, 6,
yeah.
7. They're up for grabs, man. They're probably not going to catch Pittsburgh in that division, but yeah, I'm not ready to write off too many of these teams, except for probably Cleveland and the Jets, the
What
Titans, that type.
do you think Denver has the can Denver's defense carry them? Because their offense, it's just they
Yeah,
have
they did not
yeah.
it was ugly. They could not get the ball to Sutton, Mims, or any of the guys, and they're going to have to find a running game with J.K. Dobbins and Harvey to kind of okay if they're going to move the change and have Bo Nix go play action and make some nice throws to Ingram and the rest of the guys. But yeah, that defense is very stout. Vance Joseph has done a great job with them up front. They're scary because when they have Surtain in the back and then they can kind of blitz and bring just all sorts of pressure.
You've been covering the league for a very long time. When we sit there and say teams are cooked or teams are broken, and then people say, well, they're kind of out of sync, and this is the get right game. When they fall flat on their face with the get right game, to me, that's kind of that's an alarming trend of maybe things to come. And I bring it up because I had a lot of Eagles fans chiming in saying it was kind of a stub the toe against the Giants and the offense is going to be okay. Now, they're too good of a team. They have too much talent on the offensive side of the ball to just not be good over the last several weeks. And they're still 4-2. They're defending Super Bowl champs. They've got the Vikings, the Giants, the Packers, the Lions, the Cowboys. We know their schedule pretty much by heart. And they're right there in the NFC and they're right there in the NFCs. Do you believe that the offense will eventually figure it out if Sirianni takes the play calling away from Petula? Like I feel as though if they keep allowing him to play to call these plays, then we're going to see the same type of offense out there.
Yeah, they've got to make the adjustments. That's what the championship teams do. That's what they did in the past. Even last season, if you remember, their season was kind of a little, skeptical at points, particularly that Saints game where they pulled it out. But They lost to
Might
the
have saved the
Falcons.
season. Yeah.
Yeah, they lost to the Falcons. They're at a crossroads. They have to look internally. You have to fix this thing. And but the thing is, Q, you talk about players only meetings and all these. There's signs that aren't good in terms of the locker room, and are they a team? Because last year they were a strong unit, and this season you got a lot of guys bitching and moaning about
Yeah.
playing time and all. It's crazy, and they're 4-2, as you said. The record says they're good, but there's signs that saying okay, they could fall apart.
All right, quickly before I let you get out of here, Bills and the Falcons. Bills 4-1. I think they have a nasty taste in their mouth. I think they laid on the Falcons tonight, laying 3.5, and then you got the Bears and the Commanders. Washington's laying 5.5. They got back Daniels. They had the big win over the Chargers. Now their offense kind of in gear. How about those two games?
Yeah, I think the Bills, as you said, they're going to lean on Cook tonight. They're going to, run that football at that Falcons defense is kind of suspect, and then Josh Allen to spread the football around to 8-9 targets, and they'll get right in that game. Penix has got to play better. I think he'll turn the football over a certain point. The other game, Washington, Jane Daniels is their elixir. I mean, the guy, he makes plays, and I just think that Bears defense is just not good enough. And Caleb Williams, I suspect he'll probably throw an interception, and there'll probably be a key turnover in this game where Washington wins it.
All right. We'll try to sneak you on Wednesday. We got hoops all day tomorrow into the night, as you know. But for everyone, check out Lloyd tonight, 8 to 9, Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game, also on their YouTube channel, on X as well, at Lloyd Vance, at SR 1029 FM The Game. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, 8 to 9. So I know he's going to do a lot of Eagles. He's going to go around the league. When we talk on Wednesday, kind of put a bow on this week with your game balls and your lackey as well. But I'm in line with you. I like Washington, and I also like the Bills tonight as well. So, all right, brother. Always appreciate a little extended time on a Monday. We'll be tuning in tonight as always. Appreciate you, pal.
All right, Q, thanks for having me on.
All right, there you have it, my guy, Lloyd Vance. Let me sneak in a couple more of these comments. Franchise chimes in. Q, I think that would be a tough road for Baltimore. They got to get one win to start things off for momentum. Mark and Wallingford chimes in. Q, I know you really haven't talked baseball today, but who do you like in the NLCS? I mean, listen, I think that the Dodgers are a very hot team. By the way, 3-3, Toronto and Seattle. That looks like it's going to be a fun series. I have to go with the Dodgers. To me, it's all about pitching. And I just trust the Dodgers. That's a veteran team. It's a playoff tested team. Obviously, we know what they did last year. Snell's going to be on the hill tonight. I like the Dodgers. I like the Dodgers to win that series and get back to World Series. I mean, imagine Toronto, Milwaukee, Seattle, Milwaukee in the World Series. I mean, you need a big market, right? That's what baseball wants. So certainly the Dodgers. Let me see right here. Matty Ice chiming in from Wilmington. Q, good points on the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think they're broken. I think they can be fixed, but I also think there's a lot of underlining issues going on. There are. And there's time to fix those issues. When you have a player that just abruptly retires, maybe it also tells you that they were never kind of all in, even though he was productive. But it does raise a red flag or two. I didn't even get into the Franklin stuff, which we will on Wednesday. Costco is going to join us. Think about this: Penn State tells Franklin to go away, and we owe you $49 million. Absurd. Brew Crew versus the Jays in the world. No way. That's horrible. Imagine 1982 Blue Crew in Toronto. I think Danny Ainge was on that Blue Jays squad, had a cup of coffee with Toronto. That 82 team was out of the gate, that Milwaukee team. That's not an appealing World Series. It really isn't. That's just not. I'd rather see the Dodgers get back there, to be quite honest with you. I'd rather see the Dodgers get back there. And I can't obviously root for Toronto because of, and I'll just leave it at that. Let me get one more. JC chiming in. Q, the Bears are plus 5.5. It's a mortal lock, brother. Stop with the mortal crap. 5.5. Bears put up what? 31 against the Cowboys. They put up what 20 something against the Raiders. I am not the biggest Caleb Williams fan, but you get to watch him in its entirety tonight, which is a good thing. The offensive line last year really just did not help this kid out. He was sacked close to 70 times. Um, I'm not really enamored by the Bears, and Washington is my pick coming out of the NFC. So I'm not going to spite pick, as de facto said. All right, we're going again. Brew Crew versus the Jays in World Series. All right, we're going to double up the comments. Okay, man. I appreciate that. I like that. Denver has a Super Bowl championship defense. Quarterback's got to play better. Quarterback has got to play better. All right. Tomorrow, we will be. We got hoops. We'll be back in the saddle on a Woosah Wednesday. Costco is going to join us, so you'll get a deal, a little bargain. We'll talk some college football. We will also get into a lot of the NFL, mix in a little NBA. But excellent job with the comments today. And you guys chiming in for 2 straight hours on a Monday. Appreciate our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Played Against Sports. 2 locations, Deptford and Mount Laurel. Get ready with tea, 3 Brooks Bourbon. All right, you got Monday Night Football tonight. I gave you the plays. I like the Bills, and I like Washington both to win. I like the Dodgers tonight, game 1, NLCS. We're also dropping a new episode of Back Your Play on Wednesday, and we also have an announcement to make, and we'll do that on Thursday as well. A couple other platforms have been ringing the bell regarding On Cue, so we'll give you a little more insight on that. And we're hoping to catch up with our good friend James Hasty later on in the week. All right, appreciate Lloyd Vance jumping on board. As always, you guys can give me a follow on social media at RichQonQ on IG. Of course, TikTok, RichQ on the mic. We are powered and brought to you by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Promo code BYP20. Save 20% off your first order. Have a good Sports Monday. Enjoy the double dip Monday Night Football. Enjoy the NLCS. And also, you've got the ALCS in action as we speak right now. 3-3, Mariners and the Blue Jays knotted up. Top of the third in Toronto. Dodgers and the Brew Crew taking on each other. Game 1 of the NLCS. That's 8:08 first pitch. So you get the double dip of football and you get the baseball as well. Have a good Sports Monday. Back in the saddle on a Woosah Wednesday. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, mi dia.